Salibonani, Moroi, greetings to Imbogoto, ngikhuluma labo mama, and ngiyalamukela to the Girls Labor Podcast, and today I want to talk about the Labor Amendment Act 11 of 2023, which became law in Zimbabwe on the 14th of July 2023. In this podcast, I am talking to Prisca Dube, who is a human rights lawyer and a passionate gender activist. The aim of the conversation is to understand the Labor Amendment Act 11 of 2023 in relation to sexual harassment in a workplace. This Labor Amendment Act will, however, affect those in the informal sector. Over to you, ma'am. Can you please explain to us what the Labor Amendment Act 11 of 2023 is all about, with much focus to the sexual harassment in workplaces? Usinikeze a background to just get an understanding of what the Labor Amendment Act 11 of 2023 is all about, for those of us who did not know anything about it.
On 14 July 2023, the Labor Amendment Act 11 of 23 became law in Zimbabwe. So what we should be aware of is that there are now specific provisions that directly affect the role of women in the workplace. So of interest to us would be Section 18, which deals with maternity leave. But then there are other new provisions that have been put in place to deal with gender-based violence and of interest sexual harassment. The specific provisions can be found in Section 2, 6, and 8 of the Labor Amendment Act. And those provisions are in line with the International Labour Organization, the ILO Convention 190, and the recommendation number 206, which were adopted by Zimbabwe in June 2019. So now, for the first time, after a long time of complaints by women, you realize that we have criminalized sexual harassment in the workplace. If you look at it, the aim is to prevent, remedy, and eliminate violence and harassment in the world of work, including gender-based violence and sexual harassment. So that is something that we need to celebrate. Of interest also is the fact that the Act in this particular section does insert the definitions of what we mean as a country when we are talking of gender-based violence and harassment. It actually specifies that gender-based violence and harassment means violence and harassment directed at a person because of their sex or gender, or affecting persons of a particular sex or gender disproportionately, and includes sexual harassment. So sexual harassment is now specifically mentioned in the Labor Act, which was not the case, because remember, in the past Labor Act before this new amendment, sexual harassment was part and parcel of what we used to call unfair labor practice. A close reading of Section 6, subsection 3 and Section 8, you'll find that they refer to a range of unacceptable behaviors and practices or threats thereof, whether of a single occurrence or repeated over time, that aim at or result in or are likely to result in physical, psychological, sexual, or economic harm, and includes gender-based violence and harassment. This now it makes it very clear to everyone what we are talking about when we are looking at issues of gender-based violence, and with particular emphasis on sexual harassment.
Thank you so much, Prisca. I think that was informative and eye-opening for some of us who did not even know about the Labor Amendment Act that was put into law on the 14th of July. But I'd want to understand, Uguti, what are the shortcomings of the amended Labor Act, and what is its impact on women, especially in the informal sector, owing to the fact that the majority of women in Zimbabwe are in the informal sector? Because from what you said, I realized that it mostly protects women in the formal sector against sexual harassment. But what of those who are in the informal sector?
While we are glad that sexual harassment is now being criminalized under the new Labour Act Amendment 11 of 2023, it is still concerning for all of us as women when you consider that the majority of women wake up to go to wherever they are making an income, and it is usually in the informal sector. There is a high percentage of women who are in the informal sector, who are vending, who are in the agricultural sector, who are maids, who are doing all other jobs where they do not have a specific contract of employment, which one would have if they were in the formal sector, like a teacher, like a nurse, a lawyer, a police officer, and the such. So what this then means is that when you're now reading the interpretation in the Labour Act, all these things apply to someone who is in a formal setup, who has a contract of employment. That means it is still leaving a large number of Zimbabwean women unprotected against sexual harassment in the spaces that they occupy while they are engaged in economic activity that is putting food on the table for their family. So only that little percentage of women who are in the formal sector will now be able, even if somebody is in probation, has not yet served a full year with that particular employer, to be able to apply for maternity leave, a full paid maternity leave. But a similar woman who is in the informal sector is left out and does not benefit. Similarly, a woman in the formal sector is now protected against sexual harassment. All it takes is for them to have the evidence, to report the matter, and have the courage to see it through. And this person can face both the criminal courts of Zimbabwe and also a disciplinary hearing in their workplace, so that we stop the current situation where perpetrators have been emboldened and we're able to get away with sexual harassment in the workplace. Workplaces are meant to be safe for everyone. Unfortunately, the workplace where you find most women, which is the informal sector, still leaves women very vulnerable to sexual harassment and other forms of gender-based violence and other violences that can be visited on their persons on the mere fact that they are women who are trying to eke a living for their children and their families. So a lot needs to be done. We need to rethink what we consider to be the workplace in Zimbabwe, particularly in the current obtaining economic setup where most women are not formally employed but are in the formal sector, vending and doing other things, contributing to the development of the country, contributing to the GDP, and all these other things that they are doing. It is not fair to leave a large portion of women out of the legal framework that is meant to protect.
So much, Prisca. Nginanzelela ukuthi siyayisola i-Labour Amendment Act 11 of 2023. Ngicela ukuthi ungichazele kabanzi ukuthi for someone who doesn't understand ukuthi sisolani, kodwa sesithi ngifuna ukuzwisisa ukuthi nxa siyilungisa sithini. If we were to maybe engage policymakers, what will we be advocating for? Siyabe sithi sicela ku-amendwe in from this amended Labour Act 11 of 2023.
It will be such an amazing gesture, particularly during these 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, for us to start having talking points as women, as labor, as trade unions, as the private sector, as government, all of us to come on board and say, yes, we've gone this step further in order to protect people at work, but the work has become informal in most instances. How do we go another step further to make sure that what is provided for in the Labour Act covers women both in the formal and informal sector, so that they are protected by the laws of Zimbabwe and then can fully enjoy their human rights as enshrined in the Constitution, and will know that we are delivering on the national objectives to ensure that there is gender equality in Zimbabwe.
Thank you so much, Prisca Dube, for making time to educate us about the Labor Amendment Act 11 of 2023 and helping us analyze some of the sections that we did not even understand. We were here celebrating with at least the Labor Amendment Act isikwazi ukuthi khangele sexual harassment in a workplace, forgetting the informal sector, especially because the majority of women in Zimbabwe are in the informal sector. Until next time, don't forget to follow us on our social media pages. Go Twitter, it's table_girls. Go Facebook, it's the girls table. Instagram, the.girls table. We are also there. Go YouTube, it is the girls table. Don't forget to like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Until next time, from your host Bekezela. Thank you.